He married a woman with 12 children just to win a $1 million bet. But what happened next broke him completely and changed everything he thought he knew about love. Marcus Wellington III was everything money could buy. 6 feet tall, sharp jawline, designer suits that cost more than most people's cars, and a penthouse overlooking the city that never sleeps. At 35, he was the youngest billionaire in New York, having inherited his father's empire and tripled it through ruthless business deals. He collected expensive watches, rare wines, and women like trophies. Compassion was a foreign concept to him. Weakness, he called it. Then there was Isabella Rodriguez, a 32-year-old woman who looked like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was beautiful in a tired way. Dark hair always pulled back in a messy bun, kind brown eyes that had seen too much hardship, and hands that were rough from years of hard work. She lived in a cramped 3-bedroom apartment in Queens with her 12 children, ranging from ages 3 to 17. Some were her biological children. Others were foster kids she'd taken in because no one else would. She worked as a night cleaner in an office building and drove for a rideshare service during the day, sleeping maybe 4 hours a night if she was lucky. The bet started at Marcus's annual charity gala, though he threw it more for the tax write-offs than any genuine desire to help people. He was standing with his usual crowd of wealthy friends, laughing at the poor souls they were supposedly helping, when his old college roommate, Richard Blackstone, noticed Marcus eyeing the waitstaff with his usual predatory interest. "You know, Marcus," Richard said, swirling his champagne, "you've conquered every type of woman in this city. Supermodels, actresses, socialites. But I bet there's one type you could never handle." Marcus raised an eyebrow. His competitive nature immediately peaked. "Try me? A real woman. Someone with actual responsibilities. Someone who wouldn't fall for your money and charm because she's too busy surviving." Richard pulled out his phone, scrolling through social media. "Like this woman here, Isabella Rodriguez. She's got 12 kids, works multiple jobs, and volunteers at the local food bank on weekends. I dare you not just seduce her, but actually marry her." The group erupted in laughter. 12 kids. Marcus scoffed. "That's not a woman. That's a daycare center." "Exactly my point," Richard grinned. $1 million says you can't get her to marry you within 6 months. But here's the kicker. You have to actually live with her and all those kids for at least 3 months after the wedding. No separate houses, no nannies, no help. Just you, her, and 12 children in whatever cramped space she calls home. Marcus's eyes gleamed with the thrill of a new challenge. "Make it $2 million and you got a deal." Marcus did his research like he was acquiring a company. He learned Isabella's schedule, her routes, her favorite coffee shop. He discovered she had a weakness for old romantic movies, and that she stopped at the same bodega every morning to buy coffee and a single lottery ticket. Her one indulgence, she told the clerk, because hope is the only thing keeping me going. He orchestrated their first meeting at that very bodega, bumping into her and spilling her coffee. He bought her a replacement and insisted on walking her to her car, a beaten-up Honda with a cracked windshield and bumper held on with duct tape. "I'm so sorry about your coffee," he said, though he dressed down for the occasion in jeans and a regular t-shirt. "I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Williams." He decided to use a fake last name to avoid recognition. "Isabella," she replied, clearly in a hurry. "And it's fine, really. I need to get to work." "What do you do?" he asked, though he already knew. "I clean offices," she said without shame. "At night. During the day, I drive for rideshare, and on weekends I work at the grocery store. Someone's got to keep the lights on." Marcus felt a strange pang at her honesty. In his world, everyone lied about everything. 12 kids, huh? That's wow. Isabella's face immediately hardened. "Look, if you're going to judge me..." No, Marcus said quickly. "I think it's incredible. I can barely take care of myself." Over the following weeks, Marcus played the part of the struggling single guy perfectly. He told her he worked in consulting and lived in a modest apartment. He'd rented a small place just for the act. He showed up at her workplace with coffee, offered to help with her car when it broke down, and slowly ingratiated himself into her life. The hardest part wasn't winning her over. It was meeting the kids. 12 children ranging from toddlers to teenagers, each with their own personality, their own needs, their own stories of abandonment or trauma. There was Miguel, the eldest at 17, who'd been with Isabella since he was 10 after his parents died in a car accident. There was little Sophia, only 3, who'd been born to a teenage mother who couldn't care for her. There were the twins, Carlos and Carmen, who'd bounced between foster homes until Isabella took them in. Marcus had expected chaos, but what he found was a well-oiled machine. Isabella had systems for everything: chore charts, homework schedules, meal planning that could feed an army on a shoestring budget. The children respected her not out of fear, but out of genuine love. They called her Mama Isa and protected each other like a real family. Despite himself, Marcus found their routine oddly comforting. He'd never experienced anything like it. The warmth of a real family dinner, the sound of laughter echoing through small rooms, the way Isabella would sing softly in Spanish while braiding one of the girls' hair. After 4 months of courtship, Marcus proposed in the most elaborate way he could manage without revealing his true wealth. He rented out the local community center where Isabella volunteered, filled it with flowers, and had all 12 children help with the proposal. His heart hammered as he got down on one knee, and for the first time in his life, he felt genuinely nervous. "Isabella Rodriguez," he said, his voice shaking more than he'd expected. "You've shown me what love really looks like. Will you marry me?" She said yes through tears, and the children erupted in cheers. But as Marcus slipped a ring, a beautiful but modest band he'd carefully selected, onto her finger, he felt something he'd never experienced before: guilt. The wedding was small, held in the same community center where he'd proposed. Isabella wore a simple white dress from a discount store, and she looked more beautiful than any supermodel he'd ever dated. The children walked her down the aisle, and Marcus found himself crying, actually crying, at the sight of this woman who'd opened her heart to him completely. The bet required him to live with her for 3 months after the wedding. He'd expected it to be torture, but instead, it became the most meaningful 3 months of his life. He learned to change diapers, help with homework, mediate sibling disputes, and budget grocery shopping. He watched Isabella work herself to exhaustion every day, never complaining, always putting the children first. But the real turning point came when little Sophia got sick with pneumonia. Isabella couldn't afford the hospital bill, and Marcus watched her cry silently in the kitchen, trying to figure out how to pay for the medicine her daughter needed. He wanted to reveal his identity, to pay for everything, but the bet required him to maintain his cover. Instead, he told her he'd borrowed money from a friend. Isabella resisted, but when Sophia's condition worsened, she finally accepted. Marcus secretly paid for the best pediatric care in the city, watching from the shadows as Isabella held Sophia's hand through the night, whispering prayers and promises. That's when Marcus realized a horrible truth. He'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with Isabella Rodriguez. The bet had become meaningless. The money meant nothing. All he wanted was to spend the rest of his life with this incredible woman and these amazing children. The 3 months were almost up when Richard Blackstone decided to reveal the truth. He'd grown suspicious of Marcus's behavior, the way he'd stopped showing up to social events, the way he'd talk about his family with genuine affection. Richard hired a private investigator who took photos of Marcus with Isabella and the children, looking genuinely happy. Richard confronted Marcus at the penthouse he'd been secretly maintaining. "You're actually falling for her, aren't you?" he laughed. Marcus Wellington, the man who's never met a heart he couldn't break, is getting played by a woman with 12 kids. "It's not like that," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? Well, let me help you remember what this is really about." Richard pulled out his phone and called Isabella. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is Richard Blackstone. I have some information about your husband that I think you should know." Marcus lunged for the phone, but it was too late. Richard had already revealed everything. Marcus's real identity, his wealth, the bet, the apartment he'd been hiding, everything. The phone call ended in silence. Marcus tried calling Isabella back, but she wouldn't answer. He raced to the apartment in Queens. But when he arrived, she was waiting for him on the front steps, her face streaked with tears but her eyes blazing with fury. $2 million, she said quietly. That's what I was worth to you. $2 million. Isabella, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you lied to me for 6 months? That you made me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist? That you made my children love you when you were just using us for entertainment? Marcus felt his heart breaking. I love you. I love all of you. That's real, Isabella. That's the only real thing in this whole mess. She stood up, and he could see the strength in her that had allowed her to survive everything life had thrown at her. Love? You don't know what love is, Marcus. Love is working 3 jobs to keep a roof over your children's heads. Love is staying up all night with a sick child. Love is sacrificing everything for the people who matter most to you. You've never loved anything but yourself. That's not true anymore, Marcus pleaded. You changed me. You all changed me. Isabella looked at him with pity. No, we didn't. Because if we had, you never would have been able to lie to us for 6 months. You never would have been able to look at my children, our children, and know that you were using them as pawns in your sick game. Marcus tried everything to win her back. He showed up at her work, sent flowers, called her friends, even went to community center where she volunteered. But Isabella had made her choice. She filed for divorce and moved with the children to a different neighborhood, changing her phone number and blocking him on social media. The bet was over, but Marcus couldn't bring himself to collect the money. He threw himself into his work, but everything felt hollow. The penthouse felt empty, the expensive restaurants tasteless, the meaningless relationships with shallow people unbearable. 6 months later, Marcus was walking to the same neighborhood where Isabella used to live when he saw a familiar figure. Miguel, Isabella's eldest son, now 18 and working at a local garage. Miguel, Marcus called out, his heart racing. The young man turned, his face hardening when he saw Marcus. What do you want? How is she? How are all of you? Miguel stared at him for a long moment. She's good. Better, actually. She got a job at a nonprofit that helps single mothers. Better pay, better hours. The kids are doing well in school. And you? I'm working, saving money for college. Mama ISA. She's helping me apply for scholarships. Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes. I'm glad. I'm so glad you're all okay. Miguel was quiet for a moment, then said, You know, she cried for weeks after you left. Not because she missed you, but because she felt stupid for believing in you. She blamed herself for not protecting us better. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Miguel, You want to know the real kicker? Miguel continued. She still defends you. When the little ones ask about you, she tells them that sometimes people make mistakes, that it doesn't mean they're bad people. She won't let us hate you, even after what you did. Marcus broke down completely then, sobbing in the middle of the street. Miguel watched him for a moment, then walked away without another word. That night, Marcus made a decision. He couldn't undo what he'd done, but he could try to make amends. He set up a trust fund for each of the 12 children, enough to pay for their education and give them a start in life. He made the donations anonymous, funneling them through various charities, so they could never be traced back to him. He also started a foundation to help single mothers and families in need, quietly funding programs that provided job training, childcare, and educational support. He never named it after Isabella, never sought recognition for his work. It was the only way he knew how to honor what she taught him about real love. Marcus never saw Isabella again, but he never stopped loving her. He never remarried, never had children of his own. He learned too late that love isn't something you can buy, manipulate, or win as a prize. Real love is sacrifice, commitment, and putting someone else's needs before your own. Lessons that Isabella had tried to teach him every single day, if only he'd been humble enough to learn. Sometimes the greatest victory is realizing you've lost something you never deserved in the first place. And sometimes the most expensive lesson is the one that teaches you that some things, like love, family, and integrity, are truly priceless. If you want more emotional stories like that, please subscribe for more. Thank you, and until next time.